Hello and welcome back to Going Google, how to leverage Google Apps for outdoor education programs. I'm Ian Brown and I'm continuing this conversation about how to use Google Apps and the different uses we have within our outdoor program, Outdoor Adventures here at Angelo State University. In this particular tutorial, I'm going to cover how to use Google Forms and leverage Google Apps scripting to automate a form response and make it much smoother, much more connected user experience. So in this case, we have a simple graduate assistant application as our Google form. Creating a form is as simple as going in here to a Google Drive and just hitting New, More, Google Forms, and that allows you to go through and create all the different questions that you want. And then change the themes and make it look nice. You can embed these on different sites. It has multiple applications within our program. In fact, about 60 to 70% of our forms within our program are Google Forms that are automated and that are online and that are embedded within various applications. So I'll keep it short, but in this case, we're going to use a graduate assistant application as the sample, and we're going to take the information that a user fills out here and all of this information in this form and plug it into a template so that we can create a PDF document that gets emailed to the user that submitted it, as well as to the assistant director, the program director, the people on the search committee in this case. So, okay, well, where do you start? You should start probably by looking at the link in the YouTube description for the link to this folder, and you'll see various things here. You'll want to create your own form. You should create it in a separate folder, but you should kind of poke through these documents first and look around. A good step is the step-by-step guide, or a good first step is the step-by-step guide that's right here, and this kind of outlines everything that you need to do. My first thing is I always go in and create the form. What do I want to ask? What kind of information do I need? I don't want anyone from, I want outside people to be able to click on this link and to fill out the application, so I do not want to require ASU login to view it. But that's a great process. I could collect their username and automatically email them instead of asking them for their email address here. So that kind of cleans up the process if you do like to, if you are set up with a Google Apps account with your domain name. But anyway, in this case, it's not. And so I create all my questions, and I want to make sure that the box required question is checked for every question. The reason for this is if you don't do that and the user doesn't put anything in that form question, if they skip over it, then it really starts to look wonky on the back end after they've submitted the form. Their template will come out looking a little bit off kilter. So required questions really helps make it clean. The other important thing is that whenever you create your form and once you click view responses or you go into your response file, then all of your questions are going to be set in a predetermined order. So you want to make sure that all of your questions are set. If for some reason you change your questions after opening the response file, it's not an issue. Just go into responses, go to change response destination, new sheet in an existing spreadsheet, and so this allows us to select your existing response file. And so I'm going to select this one, and what that does is it creates another tab in your workbook or in your Google spreadsheet. So it would create another tab over here, and you would delete this one, the original one, just to prevent any confusion. Once you get your questions set in order, I'm going to highlight your entire row, go over to the variables tab that you create. You'll want to paste special, so paste transpose. I highlight things green if it's something that you need to update. and highlight it in red if it's something that should automatically update. So in this area right here, although the numbers don't automatically update, it's not something that you should change other than just simply numbering each variable. Okay, and so if this is the label of the question, what you want to do over here is create a computer name, or what's known as a variable for it. It's a shorthand name that represents this particular cell on this particular spreadsheet. So it would represent, in this case, cell B2 or B3 or B4, I guess basically column B. And so you go down, a couple rules. You want to keep it nice and short because the longer, the more work it is, and the more confusing. And you also want to only capitalize the first letter. So you can see here, I have a formula in place here that automatically updates whenever you change something over here. So if we were to change this to, say, time plus, you can see it automatically updates here and so on. If for some reason columns D, E, and F don't update after row 3 or greater, you just highlight row D2 to F2 and then just drag down your crosshairs, and you can see that it automatically updates with the correct information. And it takes basically some text that we need, the name and the number, and it plugs it in appropriately over here. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and copy our column F here, go into an empty cell anywhere, and paste it in there. You want to double click in the cell, then paste it. Then you're going to hit Command. You're going to select all of the text and cut it. So Command A selects it, or Control A if you're on a Windows computer. Then you're going to go back to your folder where you're storing everything. You'll create a template or a Google Doc. So in our case, I've created a Google Doc already. I'm going to go into that Google Doc, paste my key names, and I'm going to format my key names how I format everything else in this document. And basically this is my first starting point. I'll go in here, I'll put this in here, I'll copy over our template for other forms, and then I'll lay out the information how I want it to look on the back end after everything goes through and gets downloaded as a PDF. And then I swing these, I just cut and paste these keywords into the appropriate area, into the next to the appropriate question. So in this case, preferred beginning date of employment, key start right there. So each key represents a user response that will be replaced down the road whenever a user submits the form. It's important for formatting reasons. I think I prefer to use a table for simple shorthand answers, and you can see I just got rid of the table lines or the borders. And for qualitative questions, which is really why we do this to begin with, I use traditional, more common text layout and give good spacing. The thing that's important to note here is once they really start typing essay questions, you should expect it. Don't necessarily worry that your question lays up here and the answer lays down here, because once they start submitting three lines of data or more, it's going to start to push this down. So there are ways to change that to make sure it always starts on the next page. But honestly, if you're trying to cut down on paper, I would just lay it out like this. Okay, so this is what our template looks like. I'm going to go ahead and leave this tab open, go back to my response file. Now I'm going to do something. I'm going to go to the back end called Tools, Script Editor. In our case, I've already preloaded um, the text in here, the code in here, but I'll show you how we copy and paste that in just a second. The script editor is simply Google's version. It's another tool within Google Apps that allows you to create a script within various applications. So you can create scripts for sheets, docs, forms. You can create it for a lot of different things. And it's basically JavaScript that reads the data that gets put in and converts it however you want it. Now, whenever you open the script editor for the first time, there will be a window that pops up and says, "Hey, create a project, a blank project." That's the one that you want to select. You don't need a prefabricated template. If there's any code in there already, you can just go ahead and highlight it and get rid of it. You'll want to name it appropriately, so in our case I name it sample form. And then I'm going to go back to the folder and open up the sample form automation code. This is a separate Google Doc here. I'm going to highlight all of that text and paste it in. And you can see I already have it outlined with step-by-step instructions again listed here. So the first step is review all of the comments here. The next thing is I'm going to go back to my template and copy the URL. So I'm going to go back to my template, copy the URL, paste it right here. Okay, and now I'm going to take my key, which is located right here. It's right after the D and right before the word edit, and it's between the two slashes. I'm going to copy that key, and that's a common verb or verbiage within Google Apps. So if you're ever thinking, hey, what's the key to a document, that's the key right there. That's how you find it. So basically it tells the script, hey, go open up this document, and here's the key to open up this document, or how to find it. Okay, now we're going to title it. So it doesn't matter what you title it whenever you create your template. This is what the front end user is going to see. So OA Graduate Assistant Application, that's my title, and I'll get to that in just a second. Now this says, hey, you got to turn on the resources. So I'm going to go ahead and hit resources, current project triggers. If you don't see, you probably won't see anything here. It says you don't have any current triggers. Click here to add a new one. You want to make sure it says on form submit, from spreadsheet, on form submit, and you'll hit save. Again, if you've never done this before, you'll have to authorize it with another simple click, and it's just as simple as just clicking authorize. That's authorizing Google Apps Script, this editor, to read the script and to send email on your behalf. So if you have a non-human account, like for example we have adventures@angela.edu, I would create the script and the form and everything from that account and authorize the resources from that account rather than from this account when sending most of my forms. The reason why I don't do it here is because this is a more personal interaction with each candidate, and I want them to have direct connection to me in this case. So it's directly coming from me. Okay, now we're going to go down, and this begins the function. So this sets up where you want the email to go besides the form user. So in this case, I want me to be copied on each email. If I wanted my GA to be copied, I could do GA, at angela.edu. I could just add a comma and add their information in right there. Notice I'm doing it within the quotes. Okay, next I need to define my variables. So I need to let the code know, hey, this particular box or this field response from the user is the timestamp. This particular box is their preferred start date, their first name, their last name. So in order to do that, I'm going to go back to my response file, copy everything in column D, and paste it right in here, and I'll just replace the existing variables. Next, we need to tell the code to open up or to read the template, make a copy, and rename it something. So we're going to rename it. In this case, graduate assistant application for last name. So for their last name, and this helps me whenever I'm storing their documents. I can store their applications by last name. Okay, then it opens up the document, and then it reads all of the document, and it replaces each keyword with the variables that they have outlined up here. So let's go back to our response file. We've got to update that code section. So I'll go here, and I'm going to highlight the code, replace that, save and close the document. This converts the document to a PDF. Okay, a good way to test this, the thing is it could come out a little wonky. So if you hit File, Download as PDF on your template document, it will give you a good inkling as to how will your document look on the back end after it's downloaded as a PDF. Sometimes the formatting can get a little bit shifted, or you could have an undesired effect. So it doesn't hurt to test it before you get too far. Okay, let's go back to the code. We can create a subject. Okay, so now we're gonna create the subject and body of the email and then send it. So here, my subject of the email is OAGA application received, instructions within. I could even say, here for the last name, and you see that this adds in their last name. So I'm using the variable and adding it in here with pluses in between the quotes. So the plus sign breaks apart the quotes and changes it to blue coding, and then breaks apart the variable and gets back into what's called string mode. Okay, anyway, so now I get into the body of the email. I like to personalize it with their first name, and then I like to send the email. So it's going to send it to the email address that they identify. It's going to use the subject that we have identified, the body that we've identified, and it's going to copy the email addresses that we set at the beginning right here. Okay, and then it's going to attach the document as a PDF. Then this piece of code right here, you could get rid of it if you wish, but what that does is it deletes the temporary document that the code creates, so that you don't have a long list of copied documents in your Google Drive. Remember, you're going to get emailed a PDF version of this, and so this is just a good way to kind of help keep your Google Drive a little bit more clean. So I make sure that this process is in here. Go ahead and hit save. If you were to run the debug for some reason, the debug feature, that helps you go through and see, hey, do you have anything that's spelled wrong in here or any common errors? The problem you run into is it cannot read the property values from undefined. Remember, it's undefined because we haven't submitted form results yet, so it doesn't know, hey, this is what this user said, because they haven't said anything. So go ahead and close that, and you're good to go. And now you could do a test run of your data. You could submit the application. Now if you were to fill this out, you would receive a sample email that looks like this. OA graduate assistant application received, instructions within, and it attaches their document. And if you open up their document, it replaces the keywords, the keys, with the words that the user submitted. Alright, so that's pretty much that's pretty much how to automate forms in a nutshell. In future tutorials, I hope to get a little bit better with this, so I apologize for the length. I also hope to help teach you how you can fix what this language looks like right here, so that it looks a little bit longer and maybe instead of it being in a separate document, it's actually in the body of an email. So that is automating your forms in a nutshell. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email address and contact information is throughout, and don't forget the sample data package is in a link to it is in the description of the YouTube. Thank you.